Hi, welcome once more. Michael Yardney here for your weekly Rich Habits, Poor Habits webcast, and welcome Tom Corley.
It's good to be back, Michael. How are you?
Good, thank you. Now, Tom, last week we started a series of these sessions where we're delving into your research of the rich and the poor. And last week we started the series about the daily habits of the rich and how they're different to the average person. And again, it's not a judgment of people, but if people want to improve their circumstances, whether it's financially or in any other areas of their life, the first bit is to actually recognize what they're doing. They've got to recognize that they've all got empowering beliefs, empowering habits, rich habits, and we've all got a number of disempowering beliefs and poor habits. And we just want to change the balance, don't we?
Yeah, this whole thing about habit changes is really about awareness first. If you're not aware of the habits that are holding you down, there's no chance that you're going to be able to change them. So what we're trying to do with these videos and the blogs and the podcasts that you and I do is just force people to become aware of their habits.
Now, if you didn't listen to last week's one or watch last week's video, go back and check that out on our websites. And last week we spoke about the first habits that differentiate successful people from the average person, and they live within their means, and so they are able to invest. Rich people don't gamble, while a very typical habit of poor people is that they gamble hoping that luck is going to come their way. That doesn't work that way. You create your own luck. Another habit of successful people is they read about successful people, they read about history, they read to learn. And the fourth habit we discussed last week, Tom, was that they don't spend a lot of time entertaining themselves on the television or the internet. So today I'd like to go through a few more of those, but let's go back a bit in history. When did you do this study, Tom?
So I had just taken over the helm of my CPA firm. I'd become president, and I was back in 2004. And I think 6 months into that, I had a business owner that was struggling, almost going bankrupt. Actually did go bankrupt, but he wanted to meet with me, and he was, couldn't make payroll. He was trying to get me to help him find a bank to give him a line of credit. And I told him I couldn't help him in such short notice. And that he started crying, and he said, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. What are your successful business clients doing that I'm not doing? What is it that I'm doing wrong? And so that kind of lit the fire. And that was back in '04, mid '04. And I finished my 5-year study on the habits of 233 rich people and 128 poor people in late 2008. And for about a year, I did seminars, training sessions, and then I wrote a book. I started writing Rich Habits.
Fantastic. And you've written your book, Rich Habits and Rich Children, Rich Kids, and we've written Rich Habits, Poor Habits together. So let's go through some more of those. So one of the rich habits you identified, Tom, is that wealthy people, rich people, are able to control their emotions.
Yeah, nobody wants to do business with people who are up and down, who are volatile. And this is such a difficult habit to forge. And I'll give you an example. I had someone who was literally following my blog for 3 years. And I did a blog on persistence. I used certain individuals who were billionaires who were successful, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, and Donald Trump. Well, evidently she hated Donald Trump. And she said, I'm never going to follow you again. You've lost entire credibility, even though the point was that he was persistent. Her hate of Donald Trump prevented her from learning the message that I was trying to convey. And I thought to myself, my God, these emotions, controlling your emotions are very difficult, even when you're studying under someone who's mentoring you on how to do this. They're so difficult. It's probably one of the most difficult rich habits to forge, controlling your emotions.
I think it's fear that's behind that in many ways, Tom. One of the lessons I've learned from you is that not everything you think about should come out of your mouth. Similarly, you shouldn't always send those emails. Sometimes it's worth writing them, getting it off your chest, but never pressing the send button. So whether it's fear of change, fear of making mistakes, taking risks, fear of conquering these emotions, you've actually got to learn to control your emotions and build up your own confidence. Tom, another successful habit is that wealthy people network and volunteer regularly.
Yeah, they process this as part of their weekly routine. When I found out about that the wealthy people in my study on average networked about 5 to 10 hours a month, I decided I was going to do the same thing. I just took a page out of their book, and before I knew it, I was on 4 different charities. I was the treasurer of 3 different nonprofits. I overdid it. My point is that though I emulated them, and I was able to get a lot of business out of it because people were able to see through my volunteering, which I really am an advocate for, because people get to see you showcase your skill sets when you volunteer, and there's no downside to it. It's not like you're going to lose a client or a customer. So volunteering and networking allows you to showcase who you are, your skill sets, and you'll get business out of it. And that's what wealthy people do.
Well, more than that, Tom, I believe that volunteering and giving to charity and giving back to the community is an obligation once you become wealthy. You've got to help other people up as well. And I know that you believe that as well. You do a lot of charity work quietly without telling people. That's not the reason for it, to get more business. And I know that we get satisfaction by doing that. Tom, another habit that you've identified with the rich people is that they go above and beyond at work. I know that Jim Rohn said, work harder on yourself than on your job. He actually has often mentioned the concept that you've got to give and do at work more than you get paid for, and then eventually you'll get paid for it.
Yeah, he's spot on, and he's some incredible human being. He was something else. The people that always succeed, always told my kids, the people that succeed are the ones that get in early and leave late. They're work hogs. My son and my 2 daughters, they get in at work at about 7:30 in the morning. And they're there an hour and a half earlier than they get to see 90% of their employees walk in. Because the other 10% that they don't see walk in are the boss, the CEO, the individuals who are running the company, who are there at the same time as those people who are getting in at 7:30, those 10%. So it also, my kids, because they get into work early, they were able to network with the senior executives, and as a result, they get promoted. They get these nice bonuses because they get to build relationships with these executives in the company.
Tom, another concept that you talk about is that the rich people set goals, not wishes. What's the difference?
So a goal is really 2 things. It's something, an objective that's 100% achievable. That's number 1. And number 2, it requires physical activity. It's way different than a goal, than a wish, because a wish there's no 100% certainty with a wish or a dream, right? And I think this is where people get goal setting all wrong. They were taught that goals are some type of long-term objective that you set. No, goals are really behaviors that you have 100% control over the outcome.
So first of all, you've got to set yourself goals, because if you don't, life just gets in the way. If you don't have a plan, if you don't know where you're heading, any road can get you there, but any road can also get you lost. But then you've got to make it more than just a wish or a dream, because everybody sets their New Year's resolution, or in the shower you come up with a concept of that's what I want to do or want to be. But you've actually got to convert it from a dream or a wish to a goal. That's what you're telling us, Tom.
That's exactly right.
Another rich habit is that wealthy people, rich people, successful people understand that they've got to take action. They don't procrastinate. So reading our books, reading the blogs, making goals, setting dreams and aspirations doesn't work. It's not the information where the power is. It's in the implementation of it, not procrastinating, Tom.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the reason behind procrastination is fear. It's fear of, you could look at the workload and exaggerate how much work it's going to require. You could actually look at it and say, well, there's a project, I'm afraid of the outcome. I might get criticized for it. The feedback might be negative. So there's all sorts of fears that drive procrastination. There's also boredom. You're bored with what you're doing. You're not passionate about it. So you put things off that you don't like to do. Well, wealthy people have processed into their lives the ability to shut down the voice of procrastination and do the ugly things that they don't want to do, get them out of the way. And oftentimes they do those things sort of later in the early morning, just to get them out of the way. They attack the things that they're passionate about in the early morning, the first things, and then right after that, they go after the things that are boring to them, and they get it out of the way.
I remember Brian Tracy wrote a great book called Eat That Frog, and the concept was if you've got something unpleasant to do, like eating a frog, do it straight off, do it first up, get it out of the way, and then you can get on with your day.
Yeah, I actually have a signed copy of that from Brian Tracy. He sent that.
I remember I had a couple of great days with Brian Tracy as well. So we spoke about Jim Rohn again, but there are some mentors that I had in my life, and Jim Rohn was one I never met. Brian Tracy was one that I met and did some business with as well. And that's actually one of the habits, and we'll get to that in due course. But for this session, Tom, let's talk about one more habit, which is the concept of talking less and listening more.
Yeah, when you're talking, that means you're not listening, right? And how are you going to gain information or feedback from other people? How are you going to learn about other people and build a relationship with other people if you're doing all the talking? So what I found in my research was this 5-1 rule. Wealthy people listen for 5 minutes and talk for 1 minute. It's very simple. That's all you need to know. Just listen for 5 minutes and talk for 1 minute. And when you talk, make sure that what you're saying are questions or trying to gather information or trying to get some feedback from people, trying to understand what they're trying to say, and then let them keep talking, because people love to talk, Michael, and successful people figured that out. If they can help build relationships, strong relationships, if they allow other people to talk.
I've found that most people in business and in sales, when they listen, when they're not talking, they're actually not listening. They're just waiting for an opportunity, for an opening for them to start talking again. So I'm sure you've heard it said to you, being given 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen twice as long as you're talking. So Tom, there's some great habits we discussed there today, just like we did last week. But there's another group of habits that I'd like to continue on with in the third of this 3 weekly series of habits that you've worked out that the wealthy people have different to the poor people. So Tom, thank you very much. And before we go this week, I'd actually like to remind our viewers that if they haven't got a copy of our book, Rich Habits, Poor Habits, go to richhabitspoorhabits.com, where we've discussed this in detail, plus many more other concepts to help you get the life that you enjoy. And if you've actually enjoyed this or learned something from this video, please pass it forward through Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whichever way you're watching this. Thanks a lot, Tom, and we'll catch up again next week.
Look forward to it, Michael.